What's up, everybody? We're back. We missed out last week. Major victory over LSU. Zach was like, "Look, I got to get around to South Florida, talk to all these guys, see what's going on." Then Miami got a win, so now Zach can just sit in the house and not worry about recruiting South Florida anymore because it's impossible to recruit South Florida with Mario with one victory under his belt. So here we are. We're back. Friday Night Noles. We're highlighting, as usual, some of the top performances from some of Florida State's commitments and some of their top targets. So we've got about 6 guys on the docket for today. We're going to start off with one. We talked about him in the first week, did we not?
I think we did.
I think we did, but we said this is a guy we wanted to kind of monitor throughout the season and keep tabs on his play. So we're going to go back to this player out of South Carolina, Timir Hickman-Collins. Zach was blowing him up on Twitter over the weekend, kind of highlighting some of his game, which I love to see. So let's jump into it. You could kind of talk about him a little bit, what like stood out to you, and then we'll talk about the film as it's kind of playing in the background.
Yeah, so little backstory on Tamir. Obviously, current Florida State commit, linebacker out of Indian Land High School in Fort Mill, South Carolina, 6'1", 218 pounds. This is a guy that made a summer commitment to FSU after working out in front of the staff at their Seminole Showcase camp. But yeah, I mean, there's some really good stuff that I saw on film. I want to get your thoughts, AB. He forces a fumble on that play. It's kind of hard to see. I believe this is the play where he forces a fumble. It's his second or third forced fumble of the season. He's only been, they've only played 3 or 4 games. So
yeah,
he's been productive. That's him working.
Mm-hmm.
Him on the left side.
Yeah. I think he does a nice job. I think there was a lot made of a clip of him from the elite camp. He was at the elite camp, wasn't he?
Yeah, the Seminole Showcase.
Yeah,
at the end of the
Seminole Showcase. There was a clip of him covering a tight end out in space, and he just looked really unathletic. I've found that each time we've turned his tape on, he looks way more athletic than he did in that clip itself. So that's promising to me. We're seeing him as a good game athlete. He does a nice job of kind of working this thing inside out, trusting his help on the outside, good closing speed on what looks like an athletic quarterback, and then makes a good hit. So there's a lot to like in that play.
Yeah, I think this next play is awesome. I mean, he shows some speed, gets through the gap and sacks the quarterback.
Yeah, he's untouched. They sent him on a pressure here. He's unblocked, so yeah, obviously that helps.
Yeah,
but he looks explosive, and I think that was a question mark for a lot of people. How well can he run? In the modern day, you want your linebackers to be able to kind of be explosive football players, and he's showing some of that on his tape this season.
Yeah, and here you see an example of him getting blocked, or the player, the running back trying to pick him up, but obviously doesn't succeed, and he's able to get in the backfield again for a sack.
Yeah, you're getting a glimpse of everything here. It takes athleticism to be able to beat a blocker, some physicality, and then he's able to finish the play. I think. Yeah, I like what I see. He fits the Randy mold. I mean, tell me that doesn't look like DJ Lundy kind of running around out there.
Yeah, the straight line speed is something that, I mean, look at that, man. Explosive.
Baby.
You were talking about it before, and that was kind of a question mark, even like on his junior film. But, I mean, he's displayed multiple times in this just this one game that he's explosive and
it's how you finish plays too. It's physical, it's violent. I mean, he looks like a middle linebacker. It's what you're looking for.
Some of the stuff that's also encouraging, like you saw kind of before plays, you can see some of his, calling things out to the defense. I think that shows that he's knowledgeable of the game and he can be a leader. And I think that's what FSU kind of wants from their linebackers. I know they do some of that stuff with their safeties as well. Kind of, running stuff on the defense. But to me, that was super encouraging to see from Tamir. And that's only one game. Like he's had multiple games that have been impressive. I posted some stuff on my Twitter over the past couple of weeks from Tamir's play, and I'm going to continue to do that. I think it's really interesting to track kind of the year-over-year progress from him specifically, along with, some of the other guys we'll mention on this show. But really encouraged with what I've seen. I think he's a guy that a lot of people were down on for whatever
Yeah.
reason, right?
Yep.
Like when he committed, I think, Randy Special or whatever people are saying about it. Like, obviously not a guy that was super highly recruited. He had, some lower, Division I offers, but
Mhm.
a guy that FSU trusted their evaluation with and feels good about. And I think they should feel even better after, watching his first couple games of his senior year.
Yeah, his play seems to be backing up the take, which
Yeah.
is what you want to see. You don't want to see if he went into the season and looked slow, looked unathletic, looked like he couldn't change direction, not able to finish plays. You would be a little more concerned. But he's kind of, I think he's kind of playing his flag as a guy that belongs in his class and deserves to play at this level. So it's a positive thing. I say we keep close tabs on his play as we continue to go through these and just kind of
For
see,
sure.
maybe not every week, but every other week or so, we'll just see where he's at and see if he keeps developing as an athlete and as a football player. All right, we're going to move it forward here. An interesting name, one that I think over the summertime, I would have said, well, why are we going to talk about this young man? But it seems like maybe he's back on the radar. And that's LJ McCray, defensive end out of
Mainland High School.
Yes, thank you. So, first off, why are we talking about him? Is he a legitimate target?
He became a legitimate target again when he drove over to Orlando for FSU's opening win over LSU in week 1. He was there alongside his teammate at Mainland, Xavier Mincy, another big-time FSU target, defensive back, 4-star defensive back. And, yeah, I mean, from what I've been told, basically FSU was not in the picture over the summer. And if you follow the visits, he didn't take a trip to FSU during the entirety of the summer. His last trip still to Florida State's campus was in March. He'll be back at the beginning of October for his planned official visit for that Virginia Tech game. That's been planned for months on end, and that's still the plan as of last checking in with LJ. But a super talented prospect, 6'6", 260 pounds, I believe he's weighing in at now. Just a huge frame. FSU's recruiting him as a defensive end. I mean, we've seen them, especially this year, use some bigger bodies at their end position. I think it's something that is pretty easily highlighted through the first 2 weeks. Dennis Briggs, even Braden Fisk moving out there some. Like, I think Florida State's displaying that they can use guys of his body type at that position. But I think a lot of people also believe that LJ could push inside with that huge frame and within a scheme like Georgia's or Florida's, like he could be a 3-tech guy that can rush the passer from the interior of the defensive line.
Is this a leaderboard that feels like it's changing as games get played? He was in Miami this weekend for their victory over Texas A&M in front of 30,000 people that they call a big crowd.
It's a sellout crowd, maybe.
Yeah. with all the fake noise. So there seems like there's some evolution to his leaderboard. Obviously, Georgia's been a player all along, and they seem to still be in this thing. Florida State wasn't, but they seem to be back in it. Miami always kind of seemed to be floating around the surface, and I think he made the comment that they kind of proved what they've been telling him all along. And those are big words. Miami's obviously been saying a lot of things, and then they were able to go get a big victory over Texas A&M. I'm not sure. I shouldn't be downplaying as much. It was a good victory for them, especially for them on the recruiting trail. But it feels like maybe Florida's, as their season's not been starting as hot, they were once thought to be a top team. Are they moving down the board at all, or?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think LJ is going to be back on campus at UF this weekend, and that's their big game against Tennessee. Tennessee hasn't won in the Swamp in like 20 years. So if Tennessee wins that game, I think LJ definitely is taking stock into how these teams are doing this year. He wants to play for a winning program. He told me that. So I think if UF loses this weekend, I do not expect him to end up in their class. If they win, I think that could provide them some momentum like it did with Miami this past weekend.
Yeah.
But to me, I think this race starts and ends with Georgia right now.
Feels like it.
I feel like UGA has been in the best spot for the last like 3 months or so, and I don't think that's changed as of right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he still has one more official visit to take, and that's to FSU, our planned official visit. Obviously, guys can take unlimited officials now, but
Right.
don't think he intends to take more than the planned one to FSU. That'll be for VTech, like I said before, and then he should be wrapping up his recruitment in the weeks following that trip.
All right. Well, enough talk about updates. Let's get into the film. Let's see why he's a priority for so many top programs. You see him; he plays interior defensive line for them,
Yeah,
but I do think he's got the athleticism to play on the outside. 3 tech long term is probably his best spot, but you saw him on being a DN and then just kind of see where his body goes. I mean, you see him; he's lined up on the edge there, fitting the run. You see the explosive traits when he's at 3 tech and the quick hands, able to be a up the field pass rush type. He looks a lot like Dennis Briggs to me, with the potential to kind of grow into that kind of frame. And I think Briggs is an absolutely dynamo pass rusher. So,
yeah. I mean, LJ is a guy that I don't think has even close to tapped out his potential. I mean, the range, if you look at, I
yep.
mean, this play right here, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he just covers so much ground because he's so long.
Yep.
And I think that's super encouraging for a guy at his stage of his development. And I think once he gets into a college weight program, you know, the cliche, like he's going to put on some weight and
Mm-hmm.
become a guy that's a havoc
Yeah. Yep.
to block. And he already is. And I just, yeah, I mean, he looks the mold of a guy that goes into the SEC. Not saying
Mm-hmm.
that's going to end up in the SEC, but he looks like a defensive lineman that
Sure.
is going to be churned out like an SEC defensive lineman that we've
He
seen.
doesn't look a lot. He doesn't look very far off from like Jalen Carter coming out of high school. Like just that really super developmental, twitchy, ability to kind of put on the weight and get big and physical and play like a 5 tech or a 3 tech at Georgia. And I mean, he fits that mold. We'll see what as he continues to develop. You can see here he's raw. He's raw as a pass rusher. He doesn't know what he's doing necessarily yet. He just is using his God-given ability, which there's a ton of it, to just kind of maul people and move people. There he's blocking the field goal. Like he's athletic as hell. Like that's really what you say about the kid. And there's so much potential for him as he gets coached up.
I mean, he's just to think back, like Florida State was really the first school to heavily recruit LJ McCray. You know, they had some solid early momentum with him, but obviously Georgia is Georgia, and they're showing what they're showing on the field. And I think playing in that defense along that defensive front is super appealing for a guy like LJ McCray, and I think that's why they kind of surged. Florida State, I think with the win over LSU, I don't, some people were trying to make it out to be like, oh, like they're back leading for him. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Florida State even believes that.
Yeah.
But that is something that was out there. So I wanted to address that. Like I think the LSU win puts them back in the race. I don't think it means they're leading. They're going to have to, make up some ground over the next couple of weeks. But that for that late October decision that LJ McCray is planning on making. So to me, I like what I said in my report is I like the way the visit trends are headed for FSU with that last OB plus him making it to the LSU game. But I still do think that Georgia and maybe some of the other in-state schools are going to be hard to overcome, especially if they're getting some momentum on the field this season.
Yeah, I mean, here you get a good glimpse on him off the edge. Like he's a super athlete, but he looks a little unathletic here. He kind of looks like he doesn't necessarily know what to do, which, that's fine. He still makes a hell of a play. Gets in on the tackle. Yeah, this is a dude you want on your D line. You want to be able to let this player grow in your room and in your weight room, and he's going to be a terror for somebody.
Yeah,
I can see. I know Chris is really high on him. I haven't watched a ton of his tape because I haven't really felt like he was honestly much of an option for them just with some of the programs involved. But you really get a sense of why Georgia, just the length and the explosiveness to get off. I had Paul's on a play earlier. Like he beat everybody off the ball by like 2 steps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just craziness for a dude that size. So That's LJ McCray. We're going to keep tabs on it, see where this thing goes. There's a lot of top schools involved in his recruitment. We'll see what happens. I mean, I guess we're going to get some answers right here over the next month. Go beat everybody left on your schedule and give them a lot of reasons to consider your school. So we're going to keep it moving. Tramell Jones Jr. We had him on with us for some film watching, a little film review. You can go back and find that on the Noles 24/7 YouTube channel. I want to say that was that in August? Did we do that in August with him? Maybe early August, late July.
Yeah.
It was really nice talking to him. He was people came away very impressed with the Luke interview we did. I was equally impressed with Tremel. I thought he was very insightful, very wise, mature beyond his years. So I would welcome everybody to go back and find that video if you can and take a look at that. But we will look at his tape. Do you want to update his recruitment, kind of where things are? I don't know if there's much to update, but just kind of talk about what's going on with him.
Yeah, I think there actually is. So I think he's going to be on campus at UF this weekend for that Tennessee game. I think Billy Napier likes Tramell Jones a lot, from what I've heard. I don't think there's anything to worry about, like as far as like him flipping or anything, but he definitely is keeping his options open to the point where like he's still talking with and visiting other schools. It'll be interesting to see because, like, I think FSU's bought in with Tremel, and obviously they feel really good about the future of their quarterback room with, guys like Tate Rodemaker for next year and Brock Glenn, as well as true freshman Luke Crumhawk joining the program in January. To me, like, I don't know if the 25 class is super important for them to hit on a top guy. And I think Tramell Jones is a guy that's going to trend up because, we saw some of the off the field stuff, like the intangibles and him having a good knowledge of the game in that interview we did with him where we're breaking down the film. But to me, like, I don't know if Florida State should be super aggressive in trying to, add a guy that's more highly ranked or whatever you want to say about recruiting that class. Like, I think Tramell Jones is a really solid option to the point where, like, they have a lot of young guys in their quarterback room right now, and they're probably, for the next 3 years or so, have a guy that can go and start for them. And, Tramell joining the program after next season, he'd have a little ways to go until most likely getting on the field. So I think he's a good option for them. And I think there's a high chance that he sticks in this class.
Well, I think UF makes some sense for him from the standpoint of they haven't recruited their quarterback position very well. They're relying on Graham Mertz this year. I mean, he's not an answer for you. They obviously the debacle last year with Jaden Rashada is well known. They had I can't think of his name right now, but they had the young man for 25 who reclassed all the way down to 23, but then he went to Ole Miss and
Austin Simmons.
Yeah. They've been a bit of a crap show at quarterback recruiting. So that room's empty. I mean, really for them long term.
I mean, they have that DJ
Lagway, but I mean, besides him, there's not a whole lot else. You named a couple of guys for Florida State. They basically got Lagway as a future, and then what after that? So there, I think that there's some appeal there for a player in the 25 class to say, okay, I can step in there and compete against that guy and see what happens. So I would not want to lose him. I don't think there's a ton of quarterbacks I'd go pursuing over him. I know at the time there was some talk like, they might take 2. It seems like maybe that's died down. And I think if I recall correctly, Tremel was very honest with us when we talked to him in that interview that he said he's going to keep his options open, and they all kind of understand where they're at with things. Like they're in this together. He's committed to Florida State and Florida State's committed to him. But at the same time, like, it's recruiting and we're going to do what we need to do. So let's take a look at what's going on with him though. He's had a pretty good year. Obviously he's got Jamie French outside.
Yeah. Jamie French is number 2 for them. And he's obviously a freak. I mean, 5-star receiver committed to Alabama. I mean, that play, you can just see he kind of separates super easily from the defense. But after this game, this is against Bowles, which is another top school in the Jacksonville area, private school. And after this game, the Mandarin head coach, Tramel's head coach, said that this is one of the best games that Tremel's ever played for them. So
Yeah, it
that's
looks
why I wanted
clean.
to highlight it.
Yeah, I think it's fair. He's doing a nice job of throwing in rhythm. That back foot, when that back foot hits the dirt, ball's coming out. You see his athleticism here, rolling left, throwing left. We saw some of that with him from his junior film.
Yeah.
Mechanically, he's nice. His feet are in
Or
the dirt. He's
sophomore film.
planted. What's
Yeah.
that?
I was just saying that was a sophomore film because now he's a
Oh
junior.
yeah, you're right. Sorry, correct.
Okay.
He's only a junior.
Yeah.
The scrambling ability. Why we're talking about watching Tremel here and seeing him throw some nice passes to Jamie. They were at the LSU game, correct, in the stands?
Both of them. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's not insignificant, obviously.
Yeah. No, they definitely still want to flip Jimmy French. That's going to be tough though, because it's Alabama. But
There's a lot going on in Alabama right now.
true, and Florida State's displaying that they can highlight top receivers in their offense consistently.
I like the Jamie, or I'm sorry, the Tremel's making. He makes very quick, and he's very decisive when he makes these decisions. He sees the coverage. He says, "Okay, I'm taking off and running." He sees, or okay, I've got this throw. Like there's not a lot of. He's not patting the ball. He's not just. He's making quick decisions. He's trusting those decisions, and he's going about his game. Like I think that's not necessarily something you always see out of high school quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's not complicating things, which I like.
Yep.
And like he talked about in that interview that he's not the guy that wants to be a run first quarterback, but it is a weapon for him, and he displayed some of that on film. But like we've seen kind of this year and a lot of last year with Jordan Travis, that's not what he wants his identity to be as a quarterback. And I think Tremel is kind of in that same mindset, like, hey, like my top traits are my arm, and that's what Tremel displays week in and week out.
Yeah, he's a good player. I think he's a young man that maybe gets taken for granted, partly because he's in the class of 25,
Yeah,
and partly because I think sometimes people look at that, they just look at the immediate quarterback rankings and say, "Well, he's not the top of that." I don't think that necessarily means a whole lot. I think he's a good football player.
yeah. I mean, Luke
Right.
started his when he was a commit. I think his first ranking was a high 3-star, which is the same as Tremel, and I think Luke has, I don't know if Tremel has a bigger ceiling than Luke, but I definitely think he has room to move up. And even in the composite rankings, he's a 4-star now. I just realized that after checking his profile. I didn't. That's another website moving him up in their rankings to somewhere in the top 200, I would assume. So at least another, there's at least one other outlet that does recruiting rankings that thinks that he's a 4-star prospect. So to me, yeah, I agree. I think he kind of gets overlooked a little bit, but I don't think he should. He's a guy that FSU feels is improving too. Like, after I was at that spring game and was talking to some people on the sideline, and Florida State definitely thinks that he's improving. There's aspects to his game that they feel really good about already, and there's others that they feel like are vastly improved year over year. And I think that's what you want to see out of a quarterback, a young quarterback that's committed to your class, and a guy that FSU is going to continue to invest time into and hopefully get on campus in a few years.
I think he's got a really high floor. He's a player whose head's in the right space. Like he's a guy I think you can depend on to get better, and that's important for your quarterback room. You need guys like that in there. So, all right, we're gonna move forward here. The next player we're going to talk about, 5-star tight end Landen Thomas. Not been featured a whole lot this year at Colquitt County. It is what it is. It's South Georgia football. It can always get a little wild and crazy.
Yeah,
but was wild. Landen shut it down. Like I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I was over I was up in Tallahassee over the weekend, and then on Friday night, Dane and I went over to Moultrie, Georgia, to go watch to go watch that Colquitt County. I'm told it's Colquitt County, not Colquitt. Yeah,
it's the Delaware. Sorry,
by someone up there corrected me on that, so made sure that I said that right. They were playing Lee County, which is another top team in South Georgia. They have a 4-star running back commit, Usmani Croma, that I was up there to see as well. But Landen was there, and a special guest was also there via helicopter. Head coach Mike Norvell was on the sideline for the first half.
He didn't fly you in?
I know, man.
Mike.
Kind of upsetting. I had to make that hour and a half drive. But the drive back was worse because apparently they haven't invented street lights down in South Georgia. So just super dark. It's one of those places you have to have your headlights on, like full blast the whole way. But yeah, I mean, I just want to make note, like Landen isn't a guy that is featured a ton within Colquitt's offense this year. Last year, he was doing some more stuff receiving down the field. I think this game, I picked this one. I think this game that we're about to play with Landen is his most productive that I've seen on film so far this year, and in person with that Lee County game. He had some opportunities. I think he had like one drop, but it was like it was a tough catch, and then he had a couple others where he got kind of like, I mean, the DB got a really good chip on him like twice, and actually was called for targeting, which I didn't even know was a flag at the high school level. But Lannon's open a lot because he's a mismatch, and I think that offense should consider getting the ball to him more because there's not a lot of high school DBs, linebackers, or safeties that can line up against 6'4", 230 pounds, and a guy that moves the way he does. So yeah, I mean, there's some really positive stuff from this game. He's super physical. I think this year he's prioritized getting better as a blocker a lot, and I think that's something Florida State wanted to see from him as well. And you see some of that on film throughout some of his other games, and we're kind of seeing here like, this is the good stuff of him being a weapon as a receiving tight end.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously he'll remind everybody a lot of Jaheim Bell. I think he's got some even some more athleticism than what Jaheim's got. Oh, come on, you stinking commercials. I'm going to remove this because they don't deserve the ad time. When the ad's going, we'll look at it. We'll look at it again because it's quick. We'd love to see him feature a little bit more, but there's a lot that can go into that quarterback play.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that can go into the decision-making process of how you're going to feature guys. It's nice to see him getting some touches though. He's, you see him lined up out wide as a receiver catching the slant. You see him in the slot there catching the slant, and then physical after the run. I think we know what he is and what he's going to be when he comes to Florida State, assuming all the thing, no injuries, and then he comes and his head's in the right place and he works his tail off, like all those important traits. Slipping out on a little tight end screen there, it's nice. Getting into the end zone. I'm very confident in what his ceiling is as a football player. You need to see him continue to be a blocker. Can he be a Kyle Morlock who can be a dual threat guy, or is he more of a Jaheim Bell who blocks because he has to block and gives a good effort, but maybe isn't necessarily his strength? I'm curious to see how that develops for him.
Yeah,
and he's a hell of an athlete running around in the open field.
100%. To go into what you were talking about before with him shutting down his recruitment, he told us that he hasn't announced anything. Landen's not a big social media guy, and I think some fans think that's like a red flag that he's not talking up FSU on social media. But before and after his commitment, like, he's not a guy that's been like tweeting stuff out all the time. Like, he's focused in on his senior year, and when we talked to him in person, he's like, I haven't announced anything yet, but like my recruitment shut down. Like, he's not. And in the week prior, when I talked to him after the LSU game, he didn't go to that game, but I talked to him after because he watched it on TV, like most people did. And he was saying that, he's like, I don't really talk to any other schools. Like, I don't pick up the phone. So really encouraging stuff after FSU, pulled off the flip from Georgia for Landon Thomas in April. They keep him committed in their class, and it looks like he's going to stick and sign with the Seminoles in December.
Yeah, it's great news. That's a player you don't want to have to be fighting for. As you get on the stretch, because you've got some other big time names and some big time targets that you're going to have to work hard to keep in your class, no matter the success you have on the field this year. So it's nice to not have to worry about your five-star superstar tight end being a part of your class. So we're going to keep it pushing here. Next player we're going to take a look at is Jayden Todd. Zach, you said this tape is interesting, so I'm anxious to take a look at it.
I'm going to provide some context. Like,
Okay.
Jayden Todd does not play for a good high school football team, like at all.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much, one of the only dudes on the team as far as like guys
Right.
that's like a real, college football prospect. So, obviously like Jayden Todd is not like a super developed prospect. He's raw.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think you'll see a lot of that on film as we get through it. But I think there's some traits that stand out. I really want to get your thoughts, AB, because you're the O-line expert. But I thought this is interesting just to get a chance to see kind of where he's at in his development as an offensive lineman. I think it'll be intriguing to see kind of your thoughts on this.
I haven't watched it. I'm going to try not to be too reactionary. I got yelled at by the fan base for being too
Don't
reactionary.
treat this like the instant reaction, AB.
All right. Yeah. I mean, so obviously he's raw. He's a big, huge body. He's lined up at right tackle.
Yeah.
Watch the end of this play. Watch this other kid. He's just like, oh, okay. All right. Thanks for playing. Thanks for participating today. So, yeah, I mean, all right. He's on a little skip pull here. He's got to reshape his body a little bit. He kind of reminds me of Kanaya Charlton, the guy that's got to shed some pounds, but you see some athleticism there. Like it doesn't look pretty, but he gets out of the foot in the dirt. Try to get it here. He gets out of the foot in the dirt. He kind of explodes. Like there's some explosiveness there. You can tell he is very raw.
Yeah. And like that, I think that's a good point. Like current body type is obviously not what he's going to be playing at. I think he's likely going to project as a guard, and I think that'll kind of fit his body type even more on the next level.
I agree.
But yeah, I agree. He probably needs to reshape his body a little bit.
But he's got some athleticism as a puller. Like I think you could lean him up a little bit. I think you can see the vision there for him as a guard. Look like a Casey Roddick or.
I think his
lower body. He's not afraid to get physical.
Yeah, I think his lower body strength is something that stands out a ton. Like I think they did some tests with him over the summer at one of their camps, and he was like the top performing guy in that category. Like,
yeah,
in the history they've done that test. So like he tested better in that lower body strength test.
This is encouraging.
Watch
he gets off nice and low. Like he comes off the ball here. Like there's some want to.
Yeah.
I don't know if they pissed the big boy off or what, but
he didn't look too happy.
Yeah, he's coming off the ball now. No, he regressed back to the norm there a little bit, but still.
So what do you think he needs to improve on the most?
I think he's got to get in better shape, personally. I mean, I just think they got to reshape that body a little bit. He's got to work on his stance is going to need work. I mean, just his technique in general. But he looks athletic. He checks a lot of the not to drop a Chris Neism, but he checks a lot of the boxes for what you're going to want. He's got the size, he's got the physicality, it looks like he's got the length. He's got the ability to move his feet and leg drive people. He just got to clean his game. He's just got to learn how to play offensive line at a high level, which starts with a build. They're going to rebuild that stance for him, and and build from up or build from there. All of his technique in general. Oh, he's playing D tackle here. I mean, he's a big kid. He's a big kid that doesn't necessarily know how to use that big body yet.
Yeah, and I think that's natural for a guy that's underdeveloped high school prospect that's going to get in Alex Atkins' position group and kind of grow. And we've seen guys do that already. Florida State under Atkins, and like you said, like I think not only does he check a lot of Chris Nee's boxes, but he also checks a lot of Alex Atkins.
Yeah,
what he's looking for in a high school offensive lineman. The physicality, the want to. Some of the footwork stuff I think is encouraging from what I've heard from FSU's coaching staff on, just their opinion of him. And I think we're going to see him, get into the program and kind of take steady strides and improve. I don't think he's a guy that should be expected to contribute early. But with an offensive line class that currently sits at 4 commitments, I think he's a guy that's going to have time to develop. And we've seen kind of Florida State bringing some transfer guys year in and year out. I don't think they want to take a lot of transfer guys every year along the offensive line, but a few just that you kind of bridge the gap between some of the guys that are still developing and then some of the older veteran presences on the team that you feel really good about.
Yeah, like I think the footwork, this is displayed well here. Like you can see how athletic he is. It's a big dude. I think you lean him up a little bit. You get that knee bend, get that ankle flexion. Yeah, I think there's a good puller in there. You can definitely see the athleticism. I can see. Look, he's physical. He's got good length. He's a big body, and he plays with a mean streak. Those are things Alex loves. Like those are checking all Alex Atkins boxes. So yeah, I'm encouraged by that tape. I was worried because like I said, I haven't watched any of him. And you, before we started, you're like, all right, this one's interesting. I'm curious your opinion. I'm generally encouraged by what I saw there. There's some clay to mold. They got to get him in. I think you put him on the Kanaya Charlton plan and saying 3 years we'll see you, and hope that he stays committed to that plan and sticks around. Obviously, in the transfer portal area, you never know, but I think there's a good offensive line prospect in there somewhere. All right, we're going to finish it up with he's a 26 prospect, right?
Yeah. Sorry to bring you all the way into the future, but I think this is a guy worth noting. He's a top 30 prospect in that class. Naim Burroughs, 2026 wide receiver out of the Bulls High School. We're going to watch his film against Tramell Jones's team, Mandarin High School, a few weeks ago. I mean, he kind of carried Bulls in this game. He has multiple touchdown catches as a wideout. He's works on kick return, punt return, a guy that is super impressive. And I think Florida State sits in a really good early spot with Naim Burroughs. I think he grew up a fan of FSU and he's been a regular on campus over the past few years. He was in Orlando for the LSU game as well.
Well, let's peep the kick return here. All right, nice little 30-ish yard kick return. So he's wide open. All right, so he's just finding space.
Yeah,
runs a little bit of a sluggo, not really, but he's just finding space down the seam.
Yeah, and what's really impressive is that he had this kind of performance against a Mandarin defensive back room that is legitimately like elite. Like they have both their corners are committed to Penn State. The safety, Hilton Stubbs, I think we've highlighted him on here before.
Yep.
He's a top 50 prospect in the 2025 class. He's going to go to some really top premier program. So he's not doing this against a pedestrian secondary. Like this is an elite high school secondary.
So there's some savviness here. He's kind of lulling them to sleep here with his route, and they run a little pick for him and get him open.
I think one is number one on Mandarin. The corner is John Mitchell, committed to Penn State. Yeah.
All right. There you see the speed. You see he is silky.
Yeah. FSU loves him. They badly want him in that 26 class.
See why? I mean, he's making guys look foolish, and he looks like he's moving in slow motion, and everybody else is running as fast as they can.
Yeah. No, I think not going to highlight a ton of 2026 prospects on this show just because it's so far in the future. But I think he's a good name to know, especially as an in-state guy, only 2 hours or so away from Tallahassee and Jacksonville.
Boy, there's a lot of talent on the field in this game.
Yeah. Bulls has some other guys, and Bulls is a program that always has some dudes, and I think one of Florida's edge rushers right now, Jack Pyburn, is a Bulls product and the guy that FSU kind of recruited a little bit. So a good program to be recruiting guys from.
Yeah. He make you look foolish in a hurry.
Yeah, and he's only listed 5'11", but he looks longer than that. I think the length stands out a lot, and then you said, he's just kind of silky smooth. The speed against some upperclassmen in high school is really impressive.
Yeah, it's wild to think he's a sophomore and everybody, he's playing against a bunch of 18-year-olds, and he just looks like he he just looks like he's moving in slow motion when everybody's running as fast and as hard as they can. It's impressive. That kind of athleticism, that kind of speed, just the way he glides is, I'm excited to kind of monitor what happens with him. You can see why he's considered a top prospect for his class, and see where that goes. We got a couple years to get there, but I mean, recruiting's always 3-4 years in advance. So
yeah, and with all these guys reclassifying now, who knows? I'm just kidding.
You're right.
I don't think he's going to reclass. I'm not trying to suggest that, but just saying. Guys are reclassing every year. There was that UF quarterback that you mentioned earlier that reclassed up 2 classes. I've never seen that before, but
that was insanity.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to put a bow on it there. We're at 42 minutes, so we apologize for skipping last week. We will be back again next week, hopefully, assuming everything works out. Coming back, hopefully off a BC victory for Florida State and the boys this weekend, and a much more positive instant reaction from me, because God knows I don't ever want to get yelled at like that again. So that's going to do it for me, Coach AB. That's your boy Zach down in South Florida, fighting the Miami Hive down there. Keep doing the Lord's work, fighting the battle down there, brother. You're going to be all right. I guess that's going to wrap it up. We'll see y'all next week.